I hadn't ever thought about quitting drinking. You know, even with all of these clear examples of evidence that I needed to stop drinking over decades, I just always wanted to figure out how I could drink like a normal person. You know, that was always my goal. But at that time, you know, it became pretty clear that that wasn't what was happening to me.
We are Gold Ivy.
Our mission is to empower you to own and unleash your truth.
Stories of resiliency are gold, and ivy grows in hard places.
Those hard places are what creates space for light to shine through.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production.
Hey everyone, Brooke here. One of my biggest goals for 2025 is to improve my energy, and I know I'm not alone in that. I also know I'm not alone in what I'm about to say next. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing I look forward to is my morning cup of coffee. What I don't look forward to is how much I rely on it to get me through the day and the stomach upset and crashes that come with it. I know it's hard on my hormones, energy, and stress levels, but man, is it a hard habit to break. Can anyone else relate? I want quick and easy, and I want energy. Saying goodbye completely to caffeine is out of the question for me, but trying it in a new way, that I'm open to. So let me tell you about my new obsession, everyday dose. Would you believe me if I told you my new morning cup of energy includes the following, and all in one simple scoop? We've got L-theanine, an amino acid that works to increase focus, balance insulin levels, metabolism, and lower stress and cortisol. We've got low acidity coffee extract, finally coffee that doesn't give me a stomach ache. Collagen protein to improve my gut health, skin, and nails. Chaga, a type of mushroom that supports immune system. And my favorite, lion's mane, a natural nootropic that helps reduce brain fog and boost my mood. In addition to it being the easiest and most effective morning routine, it's free of artificial sweeteners, additives, mycotoxins, and mold. I feel at ease knowing what's going in my body, all while feeling energized, calm, and focused all day. Check out their coffee starter kit. It comes with free gifts every month like a frother, gunmetal spoon, breathwork app, and more. Join Andrew and myself as we start our year and all 365 days with Everyday Dose. Visit everydaydose.com/goldivy and get your coffee starter kit delivered straight to your door. Use our code GOLDIVY to get up to 30% off your first order.
Who wants to know what I discovered that's an absolute game changer with my hormones, stress level, and quality of my sleep? I am not one to talk about supplements, but after learning all about magnesium, I have to fill you in. In May of last year, I tested my hormones and my doctor explained to me that most women are deficient in magnesium, how important magnesium is, and how the brand of magnesium matters. First, magnesium is involved in hundreds of biochemical reactions in your body. Cortisol regulation, take magnesium. Better sleep, magnesium. Muscle soreness and recovery, magnesium. Combat depression and anxiety, magnesium. The list of magnesium's benefits go well beyond those examples. I asked for the best brand of magnesium and my doctor said hands down, Smidge. She prefers Smidge because it's super clean and made in small batches. No fillers or common allergens and non-GMO. Smidge's magnesium is made with a premium form of magnesium called glycinate complex. After taking the 100 milligram capsule of Smidge Evening Magnesium every night for just a week, I noticed how much better I felt in the morning. Melatonin and other sleep aids can make me groggy or give me weird dreams. Smidge's magnesium has improved my energy levels, reduced my anxiety, and my digestive health has never been better. I do my best to take it every single night to keep reaping all the benefits. I'm telling you, Smidge Magnesium is a game changer. The majority of adult women are deficient in magnesium, and we don't want you to be one of them. To experience the health benefits of Smidge Evening Magnesium as soon as possible, go to getsmidge.com or find the link in the show notes and be sure to use code GOLDIVY10 for a 10% discount. That's getsmidge.com and code GOLDIVY10 at checkout and let us know how great Smidge Magnesium makes you feel as well. And now to this episode of the Ivy Unleashed podcast. Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Today is such a fun day to celebrate. First of all, Brooke has a ring on her finger, on her hand.
I do.
So if you're not tuning into YouTube, check it in because you're going to be blinded by this ring. Another thing we're celebrating is the person that Brooke and I are staring at. Jack McKenzie is here. Welcome to Ivy Unleashed.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Today is so special, and I could cry thinking about the people that both Jack and I and Brooke love that would be tuning into this episode to hear Jack's story. It's like getting me choked up because I'm so proud of you for your bravery, for sharing your story, because it's one thing to go through it. It's one thing to have a really low and some really high highs now, but to put it into words, to think back and relive some of these experiences takes a lot of reflecting and hard work and an emotional toll. And so I'm just so proud of you for being here. I'm so happy that your family and friends get to tune into this to hear your journey and your growth and the lessons you've learned. And so I just want to send an extra thank you for showing up and just being here today.
Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. You know, in my recovery, the one blessing that I've learned is most important to me is that the darkest, most difficult times of my life can now become the gemstones that I can share with other people. And so being able to be open and honest and vulnerable about where I was, what happened, and where I am now is the most important thing for me. I know there's people that are still out there struggling, and I'm willing to share my story in hopes that helps someone.
You just said 3 words that I think are really tough for men sometimes, especially: open, honest, and vulnerable. To truly share the emotional side of things that are hard for men to face or to express. And so, you hinted at it already, thinking about your journey with alcohol. And we all have it. Like, Brooke and I are very open and honest about our relationship with alcohol, and it's polarizing. It gets a lot of comments. It gets a lot of opinions. I'm sure there's a lot of things that are said that we don't even hear from people. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so, Jack, for people that don't know you and don't know what you've been through and don't know where you're at now, which you're turning this into a really beautiful thing, but can you take us back to kind of your relationship throughout your life, kind of with alcohol, how it played into your relationships, and kind of paint the picture for the people that don't really know you?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Madison, Wisconsin, and had a really normal, good childhood. Good family, lots of friends, played all the sports. And around probably 13 or 14 years old, just started experimenting, with marijuana and alcohol. And I remember the first time that I drank, there was just a sort of a feeling of ease, of a release of these kind of anxiety. I didn't know at the time that's what it was, but it was just sort of a real relaxation that I hadn't felt. And I didn't really drink too much until the later years of high school, but still was, smoking a lot of weed and drinking on the weekends occasionally. Later in high school, I felt anxiety start to develop. Still didn't know what it was, but I did know that alcohol helped me with it. And in that way, alcohol was a solution for me to a problem that started within me. And I didn't like how I felt. And I didn't like feeling out of place, even in a room full of people. So alcohol helped to bring that wall down, to ease those fears, to make me feel more comfortable. And that just progressed. And, through college, I drank more and more, binge drank. I was a blackout drinker for years and years, got in a lot of trouble. I had run-ins with the law. I have multiple OWIs, got in fights and arguments, and that was all due to alcohol. But I couldn't stop. I didn't really want to stop. In my late 20s, I really kind of understood that anxiety was a real problem for me. And so I went to a doctor, and the doctor prescribed prescription anxiety medicine for me. And that helped, but it also made the drinking much, much worse. I mean, I was a blackout drinker every time that I drank. I forgot large parts of many nights, and I did things that I regret and things that I hurt people that I wish that I wouldn't have. And that was a long time. I mean, that was a long period in my life, from my late teens up until my mid 30s, and it was always sort of a balance of how do I feel okay, waking up with just blinding anxiety after a night of drinking, just heart racing and thoughts racing and full of fear and what had I done, and then through the day taking whatever I needed to take to get back to feeling okay. And really that was for me, and we can get into this later, a fear-based feelings of anxiety, of insecurity that I was numbing out with drugs and alcohol. And it all culminated for me in a really low bottom. And I did some things that I'm, not proud of. In a blackout, I got in a verbal and physical altercation with my father-in-law, and I ended up assaulting him in my kitchen in front of my wife and my son, who was 6 weeks old, his wife, my sister-in-law, and I went to jail for that crime, and that was my bottom. And my wife was terrified, rightfully so. Yeah. We had this young baby, our only child. She didn't know what to do. She was scared of me. She was scared of what I would do. And she told me that I needed to leave. And so I left our house, not knowing what to do, having some friends who had gotten sober, but really, and I'd heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I hadn't ever thought about quitting drinking. Even with all of these clear examples of evidence that I needed to stop drinking over decades, I just always wanted to figure out how I could drink like a normal person. That was always my goal. But at that time, it became pretty clear that wasn't what was happening to me. And for a while before that, few years before that, I knew that I needed to stop drinking. But I have to give credit to my wife. She's the one that really put me to the point and said, this is enough. And if you want to be a part of this family, you need to look at your drinking. And so I did. And, we can get more into how that happened, but I ended up going to treatment up near you guys at Hazelden Betty Ford Clinic up in Center City, Minnesota.
Okay. I hear we're the land of 10,000 rehabs. Someone said that to me once in college. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm in the right spot.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. There's a real vibrant recovery community up there. And that was in September of 2021.
Wow. Thank you for sharing and walking us through that. I think it's important to hear sometimes what it takes for people to turn things around. Who's in the room, who's given the ultimatum, who's been affected. And what I hear again is you're very open and honest. There's a lot of things you could have just not disclosed and not said. And I'm so curious about that, about the honesty, you having to become really honest with yourself, right? Like you said, until she said that, you weren't considering really giving up drinking.
You didn't want. That's what I heard. Like that key desire wasn't there. And then it shifted for you. When was that shift? I'm curious.
It's a great question. I didn't want to because I was terrified because alcohol and prescription medication was helping me get through life. It was helping me avoid these feelings that were terrifying to me. But really, having a child involved, addiction is a very selfish disease, and I can only speak from my own experience, but people frequently lose sight of the things that matter to them most. They betray family members and loved ones and friends only because they're trying to protect themselves and their most selfish needs. And it's a human thing, and it's just really trying to feel okay. But having my son in my life was so important, and the risk of losing him and my wife was terrifying for me. And there was a week in between when she asked me to leave our house and when I actually got up to Hazelden, and that was the worst week of my life because I knew I had a problem. I knew I needed help, but I hadn't found the solution yet. And so once I got to treatment, I still, even knowing that I needed to quit alcohol and drugs, I still tried to control the process. And that's something that I do want to talk about today. For me, at least personally, this insane need for control was really something that became clear to me. I was so terrified of anything being out of place in my life outside of me, because inside it was all so mixed up, all so unorganized. So I had to try and manipulate people and situations and predict what was going to happen and have this sense of control, which really is an illusion. I mean, there's only a few things in your life that you can control, and namely it's your perception. But so I went to treatment, and I spent a couple weeks arguing how long I was going to be there and switching up my counselor and filling out complaint forms and just being a real asshole, and I don't know, Brooke, I don't know when that moment was, but there was a moment of clarity. And alcoholics and addicts will talk about that. And we also talk about, identifying a power greater than yourself. And I didn't grow up religious.
Okay.
Had some spirituality in my life, but nothing really that I had ever identified. And as a person with an oversized ego, I really kind of considered myself the one that made the world go round, So I don't know what that exact moment was. It was a couple weeks into being into treatment, but I realized that I could surrender to the process, that there were people there that were trying to help me and I was fighting them. And in that moment, there was this overwhelming feeling of a release of this pressure and this energy of like this brain power of trying to predict what was going to happen and who could I, control or manipulate to get what I wanted or to avoid happening what I didn't want to happen. So, for me, a big part of recovery is surrendering my will, which at the time when that happened, when I was at treatment, I thought, okay, I did it. It's done. It's over. I don't ever have to do this again. Now that I've come to realize that it's an everyday thing. I mean, I take back my self-will all the time. And I very frequently realize that when I try to regain control of my life, outside of the things that I can do, it doesn't go well for me.
Oh, I feel like anybody can relate to that. We try to control so much.
And I've never really thought about how alcohol plays into that. Like for you, was it lessened the loudness of the need to control because you were numbing the feelings, or what did alcohol give you in sense of control?
So I think my anxiety came from, in part, wanting to control things that were out of control. So I was trying to keep these things in a bottle that was impossible to contain. And so the alcohol really helped to quell my anxiety. But then it also really stoked my ego. It made me feel larger than life. It made, it took away those insecurities that I walked around with during the day. And it really made me feel like I was better than or special, when in reality I was, just an alcoholic. But it's an interesting paradox where I can go from feeling like the biggest piece of shit in the world to, better than absolutely everybody just by having a couple of drinks, when in reality I'm neither of those things. I'm in the middle. I'm no different than anybody else. I'm no better or worse than anybody else. The alcohol certainly helped to quiet the feelings of insecurity, of imposter syndrome, and with, but I do think that some of that self-doubt, self-examination is important, at least for me, because without that, it was sort of like taking the speed limit off the roads. I just really kind of went wild.
Ooh, there's so many things I want to ask you about. Oh, this is so good. I definitely want to get into day-to-day of rehab and what rehab is like. I really want to get into that. But I'm curious about these insecurities that you're kind of walking around with. Because when we say that, it's personal, everybody's different, everybody has different life circumstances. But we are also so similar. So as a male, like thinking of, you're in a nice community, a nice family. Like, what are you walking around so insecure about? What are you feeling like this imposter syndrome for? Like, what are these feelings?
We're coming at you with important information, warnings, and a solution. Sharing health and wellness gold with you is what we do. And so when we learned alarming information about devices that we routinely use, and we know you do too, we have to share it with you.
What most people don't realize is that the electronic devices we're using, cell phones, Wi-Fi, laptops, and Bluetooth, emit electromagnetic fields, or EMFs. The devices we're holding by our brains, on our skin, by our reproductive parts are emitting EMFs, and prolonged exposure to EMF radiation has been associated with potential health concerns, including neurological effects, impacts on reproductive health, and sleep disturbances.
Those studies alone are a cause for pause. But also, the International Agency for Research on Cancer that operates under the World Health Organization has classified non-ionizing EMFs produced by electronic products like cell phones, smart devices, and tablets a possible human carcinogen. Yikes.
And our solution? Safe Sleeve. Safe Sleeve anti-radiation products are designed to give you peace of mind of knowing you and your devices are protected while making your devices even easier to use. All of their anti-radiation products incorporate their lab-tested shielding technology that can block over 99% of RF and 92% of ELF radiation. And that's important because the vast majority of products that claim to block EMF radiation either don't have any testing at all, or they only block a small portion of the harmful frequencies.
We absolutely love the sleek look of these stylish products. They come in a variety of styles and colors. For our phone cases, I picked black, Andrea picked tan, and they include a built-in wallet with RFID protection and a magnetically detachable inner case. They're also anti-radiation products for tablets, iPad, and laptops.
We are pumped because we have been looking for a brand to help protect ourselves and our loved ones from this radiation for months. My kiddos have the iPad cases. Searching for a brand with stylish phone cases, colorful iPad colors, and functional headphones for our workouts, so that we can enjoy our devices, but also not have to worry about how they're harming us.
And without a doubt, it's time to protect ourselves. Grab your Safe Sleeve phone case today and any of their other groundbreaking products at safesleevecases.com and use our code GOLDIVY for 15% off. Keeping the flu and common cold out of your household is important whether you're 5, 35, or 95, and we're going to tell you the easiest and most delicious way to do just that. It's with All Things Elderberry, a woman-owned business that has all-natural, vegan-friendly, and gluten-free elderberry products.
And when we say products, we mean a variety of delicious and beautiful products, not just for you, but for your entire household to get an immunity boost. If we had to pick our favorite product, I'm going with organic elderberry gummies. My kids are obsessed. We're trying to avoid sickness from school and make sure they can participate in their sports, so they take one every morning before they brush their teeth. They think the gummies taste like a mix of grape and cotton candy. I tried them too, and I can see why they ask for them every day. I love that they're boosting their immune system at the start of their day.
My favorite All Things Elderberry product is the elderberry green tea paired with the elderberry honey. The green tea gives me a midday boost, and the honey gives the tea extra sweetness. I also put the honey in my morning coffee instead of creamer. So good. All Things Elderberry is my solution for staying healthy before traveling, avoiding frequent colds and sinus infections, really just maintaining my health all year round.
What sets this brand apart from the others is there are no artificial additives in All Things Elderberry. Their elixir is made with organic, Missouri-grown elderberries, raw honey, and whole spices.
Elderberries not only help with immune support, but may also slow the aging process with their powerful antioxidants, improve skin health, and can shorten the duration of severity of colds and flu.
Visit allthingselderberry.com to explore their full range of immune-supporting products. Stay healthy and feel your best naturally. Use our code GOLDIVY at checkout for 15% off your first order. That's code GOLDIVY at checkout for 15% off your first order.
Yeah. So the truth is, from the outside, people would have been very surprised to hear that I felt that way. And I also want people that are listening to this to know that, I was married and I was successful in my career, and we had a new house, and everything looked okay, and I put on a good face. And I think that's something that pretty much everybody can relate to, is wearing some sort of a mask in certain situations. I've done a lot of work, and I do therapy, and I meditate all the time, and I can't tell you exactly where the root of my insecurities lie, but I can say that comparison to other people, judging myself based on what I thought I needed to be a successful man, to be, looked at as somebody who other people admired, rather than just being the best version of myself, and then measuring myself against those pictures of what I thought it took to be a man. And I constantly came up short of that. So I think, the insecurity for me came from, here's what I think I need to be. I'm not there, so I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not funny or witty enough, or I don't work hard enough. And something in my brain, instead of maybe working towards doing that, or even if I was working towards it in the interim, I just felt less than.
Yeah. And the alcohol, it served a need. It allowed you to feel worthy, and maybe a fake sense of worthy, but in a world that is so hard and you're trying to live up to these expectations that we place on ourselves, but that internal noise is so loud that when alcohol, you can just drink this thing and it shuts that monkey mind up. It's like, why wouldn't you? Until then it becomes too much of a problem, too much pain, that like in your situation, you hit that rock bottom and you're forced to get the help. I want to know, in rehab, like Andrea said, kind of walking us through what that looked like, but those tools you said, finding a faith or something, a higher power. You mentioned meditation. Like, what were those things that allowed you to naturally and healthily find your self-worth?
So, in treatment, it was a 12-step based program. And so I'll talk about 12-step recovery a little bit. And I just want everybody to know I'm not a spokesperson. I'm only speaking about my own experience with 12-step recovery and with Alcoholics Anonymous. But, there's principles that we live by that start out with, admitting that we're powerless. And in this instance, powerless over alcohol and drugs. And that our lives had become unmanageable. And my life had certainly become unmanageable. And then you work through the process and you identify, you believe that a power greater than yourself can help you with your problems. You surrender. You go through a process of taking inventory of the things that you've done in your life, the fears that you have, the mistakes that you've made, the people that you have resentments against. You let go of those if you can through the help of your higher power. You make amends and you apologize to as many people as you can that you've hurt without hurting them, sincerely and fully, without holding back. And then for me, prayer and meditation was something that was completely foreign to me. I had never prayed in my life. I had done some of these, guided meditation apps prior to getting sober, but not with any regularity. And I was really blessed. I really feel like Hazelden was the perfect place for me. I think I went there the perfect time of year. They have these wonderful grounds with forests and walking trails, and the leaves were changing. And at first, I would walk around by myself and literally scream at these trees and curse at the trees and about the people in my life that did me wrong or the things that I was upset about, And it was just cathartic, and I got all that energy out, and it turned in time into, really peaceful, meditative experience for me. And they also had a traditional meditation center. It was this beautiful room with big windows overlooking a lake. And I got in there and I just kind of sat there for a while, not knowing what to do. And then all of a sudden I would come out of it, and it would be 20 minutes later, it'd be time to go get lunch. I would have missed half of lunch, and it was like, wow, this is nice. I like this. And so that was really, really, really important for me. The fellowship, the feeling that I had with the program was gender specific. So with the men that I was with in the group, early on, laughing and joking in ways that I hadn't done in years. Certainly when you're drunk and you're high, you laugh. You're laughing all the time. It's a great time, but really for me, they were empty. They really were not that same feeling of like, I had to go back to like middle school, elementary school, where you're just dying laughing with your buddies, and it was that kind of feeling. There's this feeling of, okay, we're all in this together. And we've got each other's backs. And I talked about vulnerability a little bit earlier. I think I've read a lot of Brene Brown, and I'm sure you guys have too. I think vulnerability is a superpower. And I realized pretty early on when I was there in treatment that in these group therapy sessions, which was interesting to me, by the way, I went there thinking, okay, this is a world-class place. Celebrities have been there, and I know that there's this group dynamic of it, but I'll just kind of bullshit my way through that, and I'm going to get with a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and that's where I'll really fix myself. And what I realized was, probably second or third day, it was the opposite of that. The individual therapy was important, and certainly I still do therapy, and it's incredibly beneficial for me. But this peer-led group dynamic where there wasn't even an employee of the facility in the room with us, where it was just a bunch of guys sharing where they were at, was the most meaningful to me. And back to vulnerability, the more vulnerable I was, it was directly related to what I got out of those groups. So I try and remember that to this day. The more honest and open I can be with people, the more vulnerable I can be about where I'm at in the moment, I think the more I'll get out of it. And I think the more that anybody that I'm interacting with will as well.
Yeah. I keep thinking about finally being in a room with people that you can relate to about this, and they're sharing probably at a level that you've never experienced. And so was it them sharing that gave you the courage to share? Saw like, okay, this is safe, this is normal, this is like, how did you get yourself to a place where you're like, I'm going to be more vulnerable than I've ever been in my life?
Yeah, that's exactly it. In recovery now, I've got 3.5 years. So somebody with a week is going to consider me an old timer, but I know people with 40 and 50 years. But when I got to treatment, it was like, okay, I've been in here a week, but this guy's been here 3 weeks. So he's got a lot more experience than me. And these guys really, there's just a camaraderie, and they take you under their wing, and they show you how it goes. And I was blessed to be a part of a really good group. And I think, there's a feeling of we're in this together, that we all have our own problems, and nobody's experience is exactly the same, but there's a lot of similarities. The feelings, especially the emotions we're feeling, shame, guilt, regret, fear, anxiety, depression, all very similar. And so, together we can work through these things. And, I learn as much now from someone with 40 years as I do, or I learn as much from someone with a week as I do someone with 40 years, because it takes me back to where I was. It reminds me where I don't want to be. There's an honesty in people that are new to recovery that is refreshing.
Yeah. So how long are you at the center for?
So I was up there. So everybody's heard of 28 days. That's kind of your go-to standard residential stay. So I was arguing, I'm only going to be here 28 days, and I got to get back to work, and I got a kid and stuff. And meanwhile, my wife and other people were, fighting to keep me there longer. And there's a lot of research that the longer someone's in a structured treatment environment, the better chance they have at long-term recovery. And over time, when I was there, I spoke about surrender. I ended up staying for 42 days. So I was there from, sort of end of September to beginning of November. And when I was there, there were guys that were there for the third and fourth and fifth time. And I knew I didn't want to do that. I knew I wanted this to be a one-off. So I asked them, what happened? Why are you back here? And they said, when we were here, we were all in. But then we went back home and we fell back into our old patterns. We just went back to work. We didn't attend any 12-step meetings. We didn't get a sponsor. We didn't work through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so when I got home, I made really a concerted effort to dive into the local recovery community. I luckily found a really great group. Actually, it's on Zoom, but it's based here in Madison. And so, yeah, it was 6 weeks up there, and then did some aftercare here, some outpatient treatment here in Madison.
That's awesome. I'm so curious about that. So you're gonna be released, or whatever the word is, from Hazeltine. What is that like? Does your family come meet you there? Do you drive home? Like, what is that like?
So I flew up there.
Okay.
And so I flew home, and I went into Minneapolis and met up with a couple guys that were there with me that got out before me, and I had dinner, and then I flew home. And my wife was still not ready to have me back in the house, and I can't blame her for that. I hurt her, I traumatized her badly in a lot of ways. So luckily my parents were here, and I stayed with them for a while I was continuing on with treatment and attending 12-step meetings. But the thing that I do have to say specifically about my wife, Sarah, is I had to save myself, but she was the one who put me on that path. She told me that I needed to get help, and she held a really strong boundary with me. And she went against, her core instincts to let me back into the house and back into her life, because she felt like it would give me the best shot at staying sober. Mm-hmm. She was very close to, asking for a divorce, and we were rocky for a long time, but she went against her intuition, which was to just cut ties with this person that had hurt her so badly, to give me the best chance to stay sober and to keep our family together. And I owe her my life. I owe her so much for that. She's the strongest person that I know, because of what she dealt with herself. We now have a beautiful life because of what she did, and also because of the work that I did. But I'm really blessed to have found such an incredible woman.
I'm so glad you brought her up and her name. Hi, Sarah. Shout out to Sarah. Wow, you're such a badass. And I think it's important to acknowledge the people that are affected by this, right? Because this is your journey, what you went through and who you hurt, and you, right? And that was like what got you in this thing in the first place. But like, you have to stay focused on you so you're okay, so you can be in this life, right? But I keep thinking about Sarah and your son Cam, and like that dynamic, right? Because if he's 6 weeks when this happened, like she's postpartum. And that's
postpartum
with her first baby.
With her first baby, she saw me assault her father. I was in rehab. It was a perfect storm of shit for her. Mm-hmm. And she suffered from it for a long time. There was serious trauma. That for me, it's hard not to look back and have a lot of regret. I certainly have. I have regret. I have guilt, but to not feel ashamed.
Right.
And when we talk about Brene Brown, the difference between guilt and shame is I did a bad thing or I am a bad person. Right. So certainly I regret how much that I hurt her. We did a lot of counseling together, individual therapy, both of us. And both of us have grown from it, but I owe her so much. She stuck by me through the toughest time for both of us, and I'm blessed. And when we talk about the people that we hurt in our addiction, it's always, when a bomb goes off, the people that are closest to it get hurt the most. Mm-hmm. And so for years and years and years, it was my parents. letting them down and then apologizing and promising to be better and then letting them down again and again and again. And I think about that now when my son's turning 4 in July and I got sober when I was 35, that if, in 30 years, I'm still terrified. Every time my mom's phone rang early in the morning, she was worried that I was in jail or in a car crash, not that I went to jail that often, but I did, I did. And so, there's trauma for them and my friends, and my sister, all experienced the wrath of my drunken belligerence, my arrogance.
Obviously, you're apologizing, you're asking for forgiveness, you're trying to start anew, you're back in your life. But is there a newness to those relationships? Like, you are a different person now. Like, is it kind of like a new life, a new relationship with your sister, a new relationship with your wife now, with your parents? Like, or is it like you have to kind of address the old stuff? Or, what is that like now? Is there a big difference from before to now of who you are and what it's like?
Yeah, absolutely. My relationships are different. It's different for each person. But there is a process, and there's a process of a feeling out period where some people have high hopes again. Some people are doubtful that it's going to last. And that's why this process of making amends is important, but it's not something that you can rush. If I were to have come back from rehab and immediately said, I'm so sorry for everything I did and I'll never do it again. And I promise I'm better, I'm different. Nobody would have believed that, especially not my wife. So, you have to take time and you have to show with your actions. You have to make living amends, we call them, which doesn't involve promises. It doesn't really involve apologies or words at all. It's just showing with your actions how you're different over time. And I'll tell a quick story. When I was in treatment, after about your second or third week, you write out your story of your addiction and you read it to the group. And I read it to the group and afterwards I felt terrible. I thought I was going to feel good. And this one guy who had been there longer than me, he said, no, look at all the people you hurt, you shouldn't feel great. And I said, well, what is this? How does this work? How does it, and he just handed me that he wrote something on a little piece of paper and he handed me this piece of paper folded up and it said words plus actions divided by time equals trust. And that's what I've seen. That's what it's been like for me. It's important that I say that I hurt you. It's important for me to acknowledge the things that I did to tarnish our relationship. It's equally or more as important for me to show the actions that are different than the way that I used to act in the past, and then be patient over time. I can't force it. I have to give you time. And maybe some relationships never come back the way that they were. In my life, I've been blessed with a lot of really forgiving people and a lot of supportive, loving people. My parents, my sister, my wife, her whole family, who were all dragged into this because of what happened. My friends that have given me another shot. And that's really the beauty of recovery for me is I got pretty far down there and I hurt a lot of people. Now I have the opportunity to be a different person every day, to show them, that I'm sorry and that I want to be the type of person that they loved in the first place.
That's beautiful.
That is. And I'm glad that you walked us through the work, because it's a choice every day. It's therapy. It's being honest. It's like, it's got to be constantly on your mind. Whereas alcohol was a quick drink and it numbed. And we talked about the benefits of that. I want to know the benefits of doing this work, of being sober now 3.5 years. What's different now?
Everything. Everything. It's not a lack of negative emotions, because those are still there. It's not happiness all the time. It's not, birds are chirping and ice cream and birthday cake. It's being able to be present. It's being able to understand that all feelings, positive and negative, aren't permanent. It's being able to sit there with my son and really be attentive and listen and not be, somewhere else, whether it's hungover or thinking about when that next drink comes or agitated or irritable. It's really just being grateful. Gratitude is a practice. We all know this. The research is there. The things that you focus on, what you water grows. So I am able now to be grateful for the good things in my life. I also can find gratitude in the toughest, most difficult times in my life because they have led me to this point. Without my rock bottom, I wouldn't have gone to treatment. I wouldn't have quit drinking, and I probably would have lost my marriage and hurt a lot more people. And now I have the opportunity to help people, because I've gone through that. So what's different? Everything, energy, clarity. I was a person who was very dishonest for a long time. Even before I started using drugs and alcohol, when I was a kid, I was dishonest. So having the opportunity to be honest is really important, trustworthy, dependable. Just taking appreciation for the small things in life, enjoying a sunrise or the flowers blooming or even a cloudy day, and that's also kind of somewhat BS. I still hate when it's not nice out, but I can find some silver linings now. Whereas before, everything was either all great or it all sucked, right? I mean, either I was on top of the world or I was in the depths. And now I can kind of ride the middle a little bit more, and it's nice. It's much more manageable. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to help other people. It's really important. I see that a lot in what you guys do. Is you guys have been through your own experiences in life, and now you've kind of dedicated your time and your energy to helping other people, which I think life is all about. I think that we are essentially selfish beings, and if we can get outside of that and we can decide that once our basic needs are met and taken care of, that we get a lot out of helping other people, then I think there's a cycle there. There's like a give and take where, yes, I'm helping other people, but I know it's going to help me too. I know I'm going to feel better when I do that.
Yeah, for sure. And we really want to talk about the Madison Recovery Center, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want to talk all about it, but something I keep thinking about is just knowing you throughout this process, like before all this rock bottom, is you've always been someone that I feel like you're saying you've been dishonest your whole life, but I've always felt like I could get the raw truth from you. Like you'd say the thing in the room everybody is thinking but wouldn't say.
Yes.
And there's a piece of you, although you feel like you've been really dishonest through this whole thing, you've been also very honest. Like you're in rehab and you're like asking the dude, you've been here 3 times. What's the problem? What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like you say the thing everybody's thinking to get to the truth of it. And I feel like that is going to serve you so well in your recovery that you fought the system and then surrendered to it, right? You figured out every way around it first to see the whole picture. Could I get out of here earlier? Can I throw a complaint? Should I just focus on therapy? Should I focus on this? Like, I feel like you being kind of a fighter and having that strong will and maybe ego and all of it actually gets the full round picture of the honest truth of what rehab is. And if there was someone that came into your recovery center fighting it, you can empathize with them now. Like, oh, dude, I was you. I fought it, tried to get out of there. I tried to, I feel like the parts of your personality that maybe have changed a little bit or like you recognize are kind of ego also kind of got to some truths about rehab that might serve this next venture of yours. So let's talk about the Madison Recovery Center, how you decided to birth this thing, what it is, what your hopes are for it. Tell us everything.
Yeah. Well, so we'll have to go back to my rock bottom and my wife asking me to leave, telling me I had to leave and to get help. And she was terrified. She didn't know what to do, like happens with a lot of families in similar situations. And luckily, her best friend, since they were 8 years old, grew up in Verona, Wisconsin together, Jillian, had gotten sober herself a decade before and then had worked in drug and alcohol addiction and mental health treatment in Southern California for about 10 years. So Sarah called Jillian. Jillian, I had partied with since high school. I knew her very well. Went to her wedding. She was sober, and there was a bunch of sober people there, and I was drunk. Jillian helped to get me up to Hazelden. She connected with me with the people that got me to Hazelden. And fast forward a year, I was sober a year. Sarah and I traveled out to San Diego where Jillian lives, and she took me to my 1-year meeting and held my hand and gave me my 1-year chip, which is a really important and meaningful thing in recovery. And then she started talking over dinner about how she had always wanted to open a treatment center in Madison, where we're both from. And there's so much drinking culture here and such a lack of treatment. Whereas in California or Florida or Texas or New York, you can go to California and throw a rock and you'll hit a rehab. Here in Wisconsin, there's just a handful. And she introduced me to a guy by the name of Doug, and her and Doug and they asked me if I wanted to be involved. And I said yes. I was immediately scared out of my mind, like more of that imposter syndrome. What am I going to do? I've worked in construction management and property management for years, running my family's real estate development company, but I don't know anything about treatment other than that I went there. But they were really supportive. I'm grateful for my partners. We have another partner, EJ, who helped me along the way to learn the business. We talked about it that was September of 2022. We talked about it for over a year. We found an office in July of 2023, went through the process with the state to get licensed, got licensed right before Christmas and opened January 1st of 2024. And I'm just really grateful for them. Our model is outpatient treatment with supportive living, supportive sober housing. So when I went to Hazelden, that's inpatient residential treatment. I go there, I stay there for 30 days, I go home. Our program is one that takes people that are stepping down from an inpatient treatment center, most of them, but are looking for more aftercare, looking to stay connected. However, either they're from the area and housing is an issue, or more than likely they're from Milwaukee or Chicago or Minneapolis or Iowa City or anywhere else, mostly in the Midwest. We've had people outside of the Midwest, but they don't feel like going home is a good environment for them.
So this could have been you, instead of going to your parents' house, you could have gone here.
Yeah, but there were no options for me here.
Yeah.
There wasn't a program like this in Madison. And so, partnering with Doug and Jillian and EJ, finding this office, and then we now have 3 houses here in Madison, 2 for men and 1 for women, that treat about 25 to 30 people at any given time. We're looking to grow that, but it's been a beautiful experience for me. I mean, we've seen a lot of people get better. We've seen people that haven't. I've seen myself in a lot of people, and I'm just grateful to be able to offer an option that I didn't have when I came home to Madison. We want to set the standard here. We really want to make this a program that people look to as how treatment should be. We offer all of the things that you learn in a traditional rehab with trauma and triggers and the disease of addiction and dopamine pathways, but then also getting people the skills to get back to real life is really important for us. So that's mental and physical health and mindfulness and time and money management. And then when people have been with us for a while, we're helping them job search and build resumes and get back to work or go back to school. Because it's important to get a handle on your addiction. It's really, if you're drinking or doing drugs, you can't survive, but just being sober isn't enough. And I didn't get sober just to be sober. And I got sober to live my life and to be, a productive member of my family, and of my community. And so that's what we instill in our clients. And we've been open for over a year now. We just took in our 100th client total last week. And it's been really incredible. I'm fortunate to be learning from some wonderful people. Our staff is incredible. I actually hired my outpatient counselor from when I came back from Hazelden as our clinical director.
Cool.
So yeah, it's been a real full circle moment for me.
That's amazing. I always say the only way to make it make sense is to help someone else, because you have been through a lot. You've put in a lot of work. And so to have that full circle of you're helping people who you once were, you're making a difference, and it all makes sense then.
That's why this thing works. Somebody gets better and you reach a hand back and pull the next person up. And that helps keep me sober. You have to keep it, you have to give it away. That's what we say. And, I'm blessed. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to work with some great people and to help people that were in the exact same position I was. And it is important and it's valuable for people that are coming into our program to know that they're working with people that have been through what they've been through. Yes. And that's also why 12-step recovery works, because there's a shared sense of understanding. Okay, this isn't just a licensed therapist or a doctor talking to me about what they read in a book. I mean, these people have lived experience. They've been through what I've been through. They've felt some of these same feelings of helplessness. And so that really benefits us. Our whole team is in recovery. All my owners, my partners, our staff. So it's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so glad you shared how low it was too, because I feel like hearing that, like, that's everyone's worst nightmare, like feeling that out of control, and then, having the altercation and the boundary with your wife and all of that's like, nobody wants it to get to that point. But the fact that you're sharing that, now we can see the full picture of, like, he doesn't just have this recovery center to, like, make money and, like, have this building. Like, this is from a true life story of, hitting this rock bottom and hurting people and being very honest about it. And so this is such a beautiful journey that you've just shared. I'm so happy that you were willing to talk us through the whole thing. I think really hearing in depth what happened. And then you are the most, like, qualified person to help build this. And I love what Brooke said, helping the person you once were. It's so true. So thank you, Jack, for going through everything. We have a few more segments to get to, but I'm just, like, so happy for you. And you look so good. Like, you're so, like, you're glowing. You're glowing. Yes. You just have this, like, energy about you. You can tell that you're just, like, centered, and you're completely the same, but completely different at the same time. Like the Jack I knew and loved, but just a different version that's really grounded and knows what's important in life. Like, hearing you talking about enjoying flowers is just the sweetest thing. I love it. But also that you were screaming at them. I love that part too. All right. So the last 3 segments, the first one is your 3 gold stars. So 3 takeaways you'd like to give our listeners.
Yeah. I mean, these are some of the things that for me were important to my recovery. They still are. I think finding quiet time to connect with yourself. We live in such a fast-paced world. We're all holding devices that can distract us 24/7. But really sitting down, finding quiet time, listening to what comes up. The thing that I found about meditation is it's not about being Zen all the time or having no thoughts at all. I'm meditating this morning. I'm thinking, okay, all right, what am I going to talk about on this podcast? And okay, what do I have to do after that? And then, what am I going to eat? And da 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 da. And so it's being mindful of what comes up. Those are the things that you need to work on. And then through the process of meditation, you can recognize when your thoughts are kind of running. Then you might let go of them for a small amount of time before they come back. That's been really, important and beneficial for me. We talked about control. For me, surrendering my need for control and realizing that all that I can control is my perception, and my reaction to what happens to me. I think a lot of people walk around thinking that they need to grab life by the whatever and or wring its neck until it does what they want it to do. I've found the opposite to be true. When I was really trying my best to control things, I was paddling upstream. It was a lot of energy and I didn't get very far. And once I surrender control and I have faith in something bigger than myself, I'm turning around and I'm going with the current. And I go without a lot of effort, I get a lot farther. I found that to be true. And then, letting go of shame and judgment of yourself. They're not productive. It's important to reflect on mistakes that you've made and to identify things that you want to change about yourself. But feeling that you're a bad person or beating yourself up about things that you want to be different, it doesn't help. So those would be my 3.
I love those. And they relate to everyone. Doesn't matter if you have an issue with addiction or not. We all have that need to control and to feel like you're swimming upstream. That's such a beautiful analogy, to go with the current and to let go. Like, you can just feel that in your body, that ease. And it's a simple mindset shift. Do less.
It's true.
Yeah.
All right. Up next is surprise questions, Unleashing Ivy. Oh, I have 2 again. Which one do I go with?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
Someone comes to you. They're having an issue with alcohol. You can give them one piece of advice. What are you giving them?
Go to Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
Just experience it. What was your first experience there like?
Amazing. A complete judgment-free zone. Hearing things that you thought only went on in your own head. Seeing people that have been through what you've been through now living happy, productive lives. Just a warm, soft landing. And then, learning a lot of different tools that you can use in your everyday life. It's been really important for me.
Just to follow up on that, thinking about, I feel like the person that might come to you that might have an issue, a lot of times what I've heard is kind of what you mentioned before is they just want a decent relationship with alcohol. They don't want to give it up. They just want to be able to have a drink or 2 and just stop. What's your advice to that person that's like, I'm just trying to get back to that spot? That's
okay. You can just give it a shot. Dip your toe in. You don't have to commit to anything. I don't ever want to or plan to drink alcohol the rest of my life, but also I don't say that I'm not going to, especially early on. We talk about one day at a time. So if you want to come check it out, see what it's about, and just for today, not have a drink, that's great.
That's what I've heard. Like, every success or someone who's influential in the space is you take a day at a time. We're not worried about tomorrow. Just
sometimes it's an hour or a minute at a time.
Yeah.
All right. My question has to do with other people, because a big part of why this started was you needing validation from others, wanting to impress people, wanting to fit in the room, wanting to feel successful or comparing to other people. And I'm curious because you really needed people. You need your support system. You need to be able to win back, your father-in-law and your wife and all these really important people. So I'm curious how you balance now living this life, wanting to have integrity for yourself, but needing validation, but knowing that that's not going to keep you in a healthy spot. Do you know what I mean? Where it's how do you rely on people but not need their validation in your everyday life?
Yeah. I think it's all about having a core set of values. I'm my only judge and harshest critic. So if I have principles that I live by, I know in my heart whether or not I'm following those principles. If that fits in line with what somebody wants from me, or if I want to impress somebody or do something, to make someone else happy, if it fits within that structure, It's okay. I mean, if I'm doing it for the right reasons.
Got it.
But at the end of the day, I have to be true to myself. And I know, I mean, I feel in my body, even if it's a slight little white lie that I'm thinking about telling to get out of some meeting that I don't want to do, it doesn't feel right, you know? Or if I'm doing something for somebody to get something from them, I feel it. And so you just have to have your own, you need to be your own compass. And you can't look to anybody else to tell you which way to go. Now, if my compass is pointing in that direction that you want me to go, we can go together.
Ooh,
I love that. Where is my compass going?
McKenzie.
And going back to what you said earlier, you need that quiet time to understand where is the direction you want to go. Because everyone's going to try and point you in the right direction, quote unquote, right. What's your right direction? You don't know that until you're taking the quiet time. That's a good reminder for everyone.
Wow.
Oh, I love it.
I feel bad for the people that don't get to this part of the episode because that was so good. I mean, the whole thing was good, but wow, that's like a quote in itself.
Okay, last question, Jack. If you could go back and tell younger Jack one thing, just one, what age would you choose and what would you tell him?
I don't think kids remember much before like 4 or 5, so I'll say like 5 or 6. And I tell my son this all the time, even though he's still only 3.5, is just be yourself. You can just be yourself. You don't have to be what you think somebody else wants you to be. You don't have to put on a mask. Just be yourself.
Well, I'm glad you know who yourself is now. I feel like you're very clear on the type of person you want to be, creating your own compass, and being a stand-up person for your family. I'm so proud of you. I wish I could hug you right now. And I'm so happy for your family that you are choosing this day after day. And even if it's minute after minute, you know, sometimes might be harder than others, but I'm so happy you're here. You know, a lot of people, they hit this rock bottom and they're no longer with us, right? They're not up for doing this work day after day. It's exhausting.
It is.
But you have seen the beauty that comes from it. You're on the other side of it. You're helping other people from it. And I'm just so happy for you. I'm so happy for your family. And I'm really happy you shared today. And so just thank you so much, Jack, for being here. I hope that the Madison Recovery Center explodes because you're helping people with something that, especially in Wisconsin, Wisconsin's like the mecca of alcoholics. I'm so happy you're creating this. So congrats on that too.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And I'm honored to be here. You guys are doing great work too. And, if I can do what I need to do today, maybe I can help somebody too. That's what matters to me.
And you are. I feel like this is just the beginning. I'm so excited to see where you head. And, selfishly, this is great inspiration for Andrew and I. And like, as you're speaking, I'm like, I'm so glad I'm sober. Like, this is great. We didn't have a rock bottom moment, but it's hearing stories like yours that remind us like it can be normal to not drink alcohol in this world, and it can be something to celebrate and be proud of.
I want to say that too. Like, you don't have to have a bottom like I did. You guys are great examples of that. And I think that's a beautiful thing about our generation. And it looks like the generations coming after us is we're just deciding not to pick up this poison and put it in our bodies. It works for some people. I don't judge people who can drink. That's good for them. It doesn't work for me. And when I first got sober, I thought, oh God, like I'm outside of this bigger group. I'm not having fun anymore. Now I feel like I'm a part of a smaller, more exclusive group of people that are really living their life.
Ooh,
a better group in my opinion.
I like that.
I feel like we could talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for your time, your vulnerability. And last but not least, we leave our listeners with a piece of gold, a quote. Would you please share a quote and send us off today?
Okay, so Andrea had 2 questions, so I'm going to give you 2 quotes.
Oh, I love it. Give us 3 while you're at it.
Okay, neither of them are mine. The first one is, the magic you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding. Yeah, I like that.
That's good.
And the last one, pain is the touchstone of all spiritual growth.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold. We want to thank you and encourage you to celebrate yourself for taking the time to learn and get inspired in your one beautiful life. And if this podcast means something to you, it would mean so much to us if you'd be willing to take 30 seconds to help support our mission to keep bringing you inspiring stories and guests.
First, following the podcast is important because it helps you never miss an episode. To do this, just go to the Ivy Unleashed podcast show page on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and then just tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow.
While you're there, if you'd be so kind to give us a 5-star rating and review and share your favorite episode with a friend, we'd be so grateful for your support.
We are thrilled you're here and are so happy that you're taking time to prioritize your wellness, self-discovery, and growth with us. Additionally, we want to remind you that this podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We are not licensed therapists, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.